What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as the women's VNL. The U.S. women's national team actually looked pretty good. Did they go for the 4-0, or were they just a little bit short of possibly getting that perfect 4-0? And the men's VNL is this week, as week 2 of the men's VNL, with one of the locations being in Chicago, the Windy City. Also, you have the AVP League now at the halfway point of the season. Find out which teams have been dominating and which teams need to kick it into high gear in the second half of the league. Also, you have some 2027 girls volleyball commits to go over. We have some girls volleyball commits from the class of 2027 that have not committed that I'll be going over. So hand up to volleyball. Step to that. So I'm about to bring up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your feed for all of the sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way in episode 304 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard and hopefully on Twitch as well. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms, mainly being X, because that's where we're actually a part of, as we kind of got rid of our Instagram and Facebook. But we're also on TikTok as well and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers, and with your help, we could definitely make it happen. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop where you can cop t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and so much more. Also, check out our blog, which has several different articles being posted, one of which by yours truly from the past. And then also check out our Hall of Fame, which yours truly is inductee number 10. Also check out our Fans of the Month and so much more. For the last 11 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, Seal the Deal, Wax Seals, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what some of our sponsors are all about. See you on the other side.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Sports Radio fans, be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing sponsors or some of our amazing sponsors. The other half of the sponsors will be distributed or will be posted a little bit later. But right now, let's get on into the action. But before we do that, make sure to follow Setpoint on social media on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie. And you can follow me, the host, personally on X as well, at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can follow me on Instagram as well, at set_point.iesr. Trying to get more involved in the Instagram as trying to keep up with the content and whatnot and trying to build my followers. With your help, I could definitely be amongst some of the more notable volleyball accounts in terms of Instagram. So definitely give me a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. So with all that being said and done, now let's get on into the volleyball. Won't be as long of a show as last week. I guarantee you it won't be near an hour and 30 minutes. But let's get on into the volleyball action. So let's obviously start with the women's VNL. Obviously, it was fun times as the U.S. actually exceeded expectations. As well, it seems like they're getting better and better. I wouldn't say they're exceeding expectations and whatnot, considering I think that first week was just kind of throwing the young pups into the fire. But I think this team is definitely getting better by the day, and it's really amazing how far this team has come, especially some of the young players. But look at the entire women's VNL. So the U.S., the entire VNL actually got started late Tuesday, where Italy took down Bulgaria in 4 sets. Italy is the only undefeated team, spoiler alert, in the entire VNL on the women's side. So great job to them. They're the reigning VNL champions, and they're also the reigning gold medalists from the Olympics last year. So you have that right there. The host sites for last week's VNL on the women's side were China, Turkey, and Serbia. So in terms of Japan and Thailand, there was actually a 5-set barn burner where Japan actually needed a reverse sweep to win, but Japan was able to pull off an impressive win. The libero depth for Japan is absolutely amazing. It's so crazy to see the libero depth for this Japan team. It seems like when one isn't like up to snuff, they have another one to take the place, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Japan is definitely looking like they're looking like they're one of the more dominant teams out there, and they've definitely been impressive. You had Korea taking down Canada, which actually was Korea's first win of the VNL. They almost got reverse swept, but thankfully for Korea, they were able to pull out the 5th set in tight fashion, winning 15-13. And you got to feel bad for Canada because, oh man, they were missing 3 starters, and they could have used those starters against Korea. But sadly, that was not the case. You also had Germany taking down France in a 5-set barn burner. That was another fun matchup right there. I kind of had a feeling that would be a good matchup, even though France hasn't been the best in terms of women's volleyball, but I digress. You also had China taking down Czechia in 4 sets. Then you had Brazil taking down Belgium in 4. Then you had Poland outlasting the Netherlands in 5. We had a lot of 5-setters on Wednesday. And then Turkey swept Dominican Republic as the lone sweep of Wednesday. And then you also had the U.S. outlasting Serbia in 5 sets. So the U.S. took the first 2 sets, and then Serbia kind of came back, won the 3rd set, and then they kind of used the late run to take that 4th set. And then the U.S. had a big fast start. They actually led 9-3 in set 5, but Serbia closed the gap to within 1, but the U.S. closed off the match with 3 straight points to win that 5th set. I said on last week's show that Serbia always seems to give the U.S. fits. Now, I kind of didn't really say that in the full correct sentence, but it always seems like Serbia always gives the U.S. fits when it comes to the VNL. And this time was no different. Even though Serbia was missing 2 of its starters, which I thought that Serbia was going to be a little bit more at full strength, but that was not the case, as Serbia fell short, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. But that was Wednesday's matches. Thursday's matches, we had Italy sweeping Thailand, China outlasting Bulgaria in 5 sets, with the 5th set being 16-14. You had Dominican Republic sweeping Belgium. You had Poland taking down the U.S. in 4 sets. Now, the U.S. did a little bit something different. So I forgot to mention the first match, you had players like Teran Rodriguez getting the start at libero. You had Dana Retke back at middle blocker. She wasn't available in week number 1. And then you had a different bit of like lineups in terms of like all of its players. And Larry B pops in the chat room. He says, "Let's go USA." Yeah, thank you, Larry, for popping in. But Poland did unfortunately get the better of the U.S. U.S. actually took the first set 25-20, but Poland kind of looked like the team that they're supposed to be. They wound up gentlemen sweeping the U.S. and winning in 4. So nothing to be ultimately ashamed of. This was kind of expected. It would have been really shocking had the young U.S. team beaten Poland, and it would have shown the growth, and then heaven knows what would have happened. But it was a whole different lineup. We got Morgan Hens at libero. We got different setters, different outsides, different middles, different everything. So it was a whole different lineup and whatnot. And then also on Thursday, we had Turkey taking down Canada in straight sets, and then Germany took down Serbia in 4. Man, poor Serbia. They could really use some of their star players right about now. Then jumping over to Friday, we had Czechia taking down Bulgaria in straight sets. You had Italy outlasting Japan in a 5-set barn burner, with the 5th set being decided 19-17. This was the battle of unbeatens, and Italy really showed up, and they really took down Japan in what I thought was an instant classic. An amazing job by both teams. Then you had Belgium taking down Korea in 4 sets. You had France sweeping Netherlands. That was a pretty good win, considering I want to say that might have been one of France's few wins that they had, but I digress. Then you had Brazil sweeping Canada, and then Poland sweeping Germany to close off Friday's matches. Then jumping over to Saturday, you had Czechia sweeping Thailand, China sweeping Japan in a nice little rivalry match. China defeated Japan in 4 sets. Then you had Brazil sweeping the Dominican Republic. Then the U.S. swept the Netherlands. This was pretty much all U.S. for the most part. It really brought back some good memories of seeing the U.S. and the Netherlands in the friendly matchups last year in Long Beach before the Olympics, which was definitely fun times. I only wish set point fell on, this year's a set point on July 10th fell on a Monday, but that is not the case. Then you had Turkey sweeping Korea. Then you had France outlasting Serbia in 5 sets, which I thought was a very good matchup right there. Then Bulgaria took down Thailand in another 5-set barn burner. So a lot of 5-set matches this past week. Then closing off the week, we had Japan sweeping Czechia. You had Belgium taking down Canada in 5 sets, which was such a rough week for Canada. And they could be on the doorstep of the R word, relegation. But I digress. You had Netherlands taking down Germany in 5 sets. Another great 5-set barn burner. Italy capped off its undefeated week with a sweep over China. Although it was a sweep. That second set could have gone either way, but Italy was able to grind it out and take that second set 32-30. Then you had Dominican Republic outlasting Korea in 5 sets, with the 5th set being decided 16-14. And then closing off there was a few more VNL matches, but the France versus USA, the US outlasted France in 5 sets, but it was a little bit more dicey than it needed to be. The first 2 sets were pretty much mostly USA. Like, the US looked strong in the first set, and then they kind of needed overtime to win in the second set. Dana Retke had a key pancake block to help the US take that second set. And then France kind of looked like the more improved France in that third set. And then the fourth set, France used a key 8-0 run to eventually pull away from the U.S. to force the 5th set. Then the U.S., it was back and forth in the 5th set. The U.S. actually led 11-8, and then France eventually took what was, I believe, their first lead of the fifth set, 13-12, but the U.S. rattled off 3 straight points to win that fifth set in the match to close off the week 3-1. So a great win right there. But again, man, the U.S. kind of loves to make it tougher than it needs to be, but I digress. Then Brazil took down Turkey in 4 sets, which actually handed Turkey its first loss of the VNL. So hats off to Brazil. And Ana Cristina was absolutely amazing. She's only 21, but I think she's starting to develop into a big leader for Brazil. And that's going to be key for Brazil, considering they did finish with the bronze last year in the Olympics, but that doesn't mean they're going anywhere. This is a Brazil team that always is good in terms of women's volleyball and whatnot. And then you had Poland taking down Serbia in 4 sets, which was not ultimately too surprising. So that closes off the VNL standings. So jumping over to the standings before we move away from the women's VNL. So Poland is still, that's not right. That's the men's side. So let's save the men's for a little later. But Italy is in first place as they have 8 wins. They're the only undefeated team. Then you got Poland and Brazil and Turkey all tied up through 2 through 4, and then 6 and then 5 and 6 are tied between Japan and China. Then 7 and 8 are Germany and USA. Why do I mention those 2? Well, the top 8 teams make it to the knockout round of the VNL. Then 9 and 10, right behind the U.S., are Czechia and Dominican Republic. And the U.S. has kind of got to be breathing a sigh of relief, because had it not been for that extra point that the U.S. had, they would be tied with Czechia. And that would be bad, because Czechia actually has the head-to-head tiebreaker over the U.S. So if it boils down to that, Czechia does have that check mark in favor of the U.S. So the U.S. has to have more points overall if it boils down to both teams having the same record. And then France, Netherlands, Bulgaria, and Belgium are all tied for the 11th spot. And then Canada is all alone in 16th. Well, actually, interesting. Canada and Thailand didn't really update their. Well, actually, no, I'm looking at that wrong. So Canada is 16th, and then Thailand and Korea are. Or no, Canada is 15th, and then Thailand and Korea are 16th and 17th, and then Serbia is dead last. So that actually is big, because Serbia, if the entire VNL pool play was done, Serbia would be relegated. The last place team in the VNL via round robin, that team gets relegated. And it's starting to look that way for Serbia. Serbia needs to get healthy. I don't know if they're going to have those star players that I mentioned, that I kind of mentioned last week. But for Serbia, they really need to get healthy. They really need to get some wins. There was actually a nice little graphic on Instagram that I saw of the breakdown of each team and who they have remaining in terms of their schedule. But that'll be for like next week's show, when I fully preview the final week of the women's VNL. As one of the sites for the women's VNL will actually be Arlington, Texas, which, man, I wish I can go to that. And I wish I can go to this week's VNL, which is going to be held in Chicago, which is going to be one of the host sites on the men's side. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and you'll get to hear me whine about that a little bit later. But let's save the men's VNL for later on the show, and let's actually move on from the VNL for a little bit, as let's actually talk some AVP action. So the AVP League is now officially in the halfway point of the season. So I can't believe it as well. I feel like the AVP League just started, but the AVP League just wrapped up their week in East Hampton. Yes, they went to East Hampton, New York for this, which I thought was pretty awesome, if you ask me. Having beach volleyball in the Hamptons. Go figure. Anyway, so on Friday, we had the Austin Aces and the Dallas Dream. So I'm actually just going to go over the 2 matches, just because this week's was actually quite different. So the Austin Aces versus Dallas Dream matchup. First, we had the men's side kicking things off. We had Avery Drost and Wyatt Harrison taking on Andy Benish and Miles Partain. And Partain and Benish took down Drost and Harrison 15-11 and 15-6. Then on the women's side, you had the Austin Aces taking down the Dallas Dream, which Austin Aces had Taryn Brasher and Kristen Nuss taking on Kylie DeBerg and Haley Harward. And the Aces took down the Dream. Nice little Texas 2-step battle in 3 sets, 14-16, 15-9 and 16-14. Then we had the Brooklyn Blaze taking on the New York Nitro in a nice little New York matchup. You had Sean Cook of the Blaze as well as Brian Miller taking on Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander. And kind of what I expected here, we had Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander taking down Brian Miller and Sean Cook 15-4 and 15-12. And then on the women's side, we had Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin taking down Corin Quiggle and Megan J. Rice in straight sets, 19-17 and 15-12. This is a quick little timeout here. In case you're wondering why the matches aren't to 21 points, the AVP League likes to have these matches at 15 points per set, and you must win by 2. It's a best 2 out of 3 set, and I don't think there's any timeouts or challenges, so which I think is pretty rad if you ask me, but I digress. Now jumping over to Saturday, we had the Austin Aces taking on the Brooklyn Blaze. On the men's side, we had Avery Drost and Wyatt Harrison taking on Sean Cook and Brian Miller, and Cook and Miller took down Drost and Harrison 15-13 and 15-10. Tough break for my good friend Avery Drost and former set point guest. Then you also had Taryn Brasher and Kristen Nuss taking down Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin in a 3-set barn burner, 11-15, 15-8, and 15-11. Then we had the Dallas Dream taking on the New York Nitro to close off the East Hamptons week in the AVP League. We had Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander taking down Andy Benish and Miles Partain in a 3-set barn burner, 13-15, 15-11, and 15-12. And then on the women's side, we had Kylie DeBerg and Haley Harward taking down Corin Quiggle and Megan J. Rice in straight sets, 18-16 and 15-12, to close off the week 4 of the AVP League. So every team this week went 2-2. The only difference is that the Dallas Dream got 8 points. The Brooklyn Blaze had 7 points. The New York Nitro had 5 points. And then the Austin Aces had 4 points. So looking at the standings overall, the Los Angeles Launch and Miami Mayhem, they both have only played 4 matches, which I kind of don't understand. What are you doing, AVP? Why are we here? But anyway, the LA Launch is in first place at a perfect 4-0. Then the Palm Beach Passion and the Brooklyn Blaze. The Palm Beach Passion is in second place with a 6-2 record. Looks like the Brooklyn Blaze is 6-6 with 19 points. The Austin Aces are 4-4 with 11 points. The Dallas Dream is 5-7 with 17 points. The San Diego Smash is 3-5 with 9 points. The New York Nitro is 3-5 with 8 points. So a lot of these standings are very misguiding, if you ask me. But it is good to see. We'll get to see more of the AVP League in a little bit. So I think it's like a 1-month break before the next AVP League, or the AVP League next event. But the AVP isn't going to be resting for a while, as there's actually another AVP tournament this weekend. So I didn't actually put this in the graphics, but the AVP is back with another tournament this weekend, as they're heading down to the DMV for the Virginia Beach Open. And yes, this time they actually spelled Virginia right on their website. Last year they did not spell Virginia correct, and it was downright embarrassing. It's like, come on, bro. Come on, man. Anyway, so the Virginia Beach Open will be at Virginia Beach, Virginia, obviously. But yeah, that's going to be a 3-day event. It's going to be on the 27th, which will be Friday, and then it'll end on the 29th. So do we have any details? We kind of do. So thankfully, I can somewhat preview this tournament here, as it's been a minute since we've had an AVP tournament. So yeah, it'll be a women's and men's gender. So there's 40. So for the time being, there's 47 men's registered teams, and then you've got 39 registered women's teams. So let's actually take a look at the men's teams. Let's see if there are any notable pairs I could scope out of here, as this is actually just breaking news to me. So Evan Corey and Derek Bradford. I wonder if he's related to Grayson Bradford, the amazing player that's bound for UCLA and whatnot. So anyway, you got Gage Basie and Thomas Hunt. Those are AVP veterans, quote unquote veterans. And then you've got I thought I saw Phil Dalhausser. No there aren't a lot of notable names, but probably this week is probably, or the AVP League break is kind of like the All-Star break. It's probably like a chance for like some of the athletes to like rest and heal up and whatnot. Just because back-to-back days of volleyball is kind of brutal, if you ask me, but I digress. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's too many notable names on the men's side, so it's a bummer, but whatever. And then on the women's side, there are 39 registered teams, like I mentioned. There's Elena Chacon and Morgan Chacon. And then as some notable pairs, both went to Florida State. And I got to cover a little of Morgan Chacon's matches at Long Beach State when she played indoor. You have Kennedy Coakley and Ashley Pater, the really good USC duo. You have Malia Genmentera and Taylor Haganaw, I think they're the all-time Long Beach State winningest duo. I could be wrong. You have Maya Gessner and Jacinda Ramirez. I know Ramirez is a grad of LMU, an alum of LMU beach volleyball, and she was an assistant coach, and she just recently got hired as a full-time assistant coach, which I thought was pretty nice. And then you got Thais Truman and Sarah Wood. Now, I know who Sarah Wood is. She actually is a USC beach volleyball commit, and she's from the class of 2000. I forget what. I think it's either 2027 or 26. But I know she's a USC commit as well. But I think it's pretty awesome, if you ask me. She's been crushing it in terms of some of these AVP tournaments, and the sky's the limit for her. And I can't wait to see what she'll do at the collegiate level. She kind of is like a young Megan Kraft, as she's been partaking in AVP tournaments since she was like 16 and whatnot. So you have that right there. And that's pretty much that for some of the notable names in terms of the AVP League. So all in all, that is that for the AVP's Virginia Beach Open. Why was I blanking on that? But anyway, yeah. Can I also just mention that it just feels weird not seeing the AVP's bracket not posted on their actual site? Because normally the AVP, when they have a tournament, they actually have a website dedicated to the whole bracket. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Maybe they haven't released the bracket, or maybe they're just going to do pool play. But this is kind of just breaking news to me. I kind of forgot that the AVP had a tournament. It has been way too long since we've had a tournament, but I digress in that regard. But that is that for the AVP's Virginia Beach Open preview. The following week, or next week, the AVP will be heading to the Rocky Mountains, as the Denver Open will take place from July 4th all the way through July 6th. And then the following week, there's the Waupaca Open in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, from July 9th all the way through July 11th. And then the AVP League actually will resume on July 11th through the 12th. And that's actually going to be taking place in Los Angeles at the Intuit Dome, the place where it was just recently opened, not over a year ago. And that's where the Los Angeles Clippers play. And then so on and so forth. I'm trying to find where its next tournament is going to be after the AVP League gets back underway. But the next tournament following the Waupaca Open will actually be the Manhattan Beach Open, which I think is pretty awesome, if you ask me. So there's that right there for the AVP. You can't believe the AVP season has flown by so quickly. So we'll take a quick little commercial break. That's it for the AVP portion of the show. When we come back, we've got more volleyball to discuss. We've got the men's VNL to preview, with one of the sites being in the Windy City in Chicago. And then we've got some 2027 girls volleyball commits to go over. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after a word from some of our more sponsors.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing sponsors and definitely check out iesportsradio.com. We appreciate all of our sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. But let's get back on into the volleyball action. So let's actually preview some men's volleyball. So this week, the men's VNL is back in action as one of the host sites will actually be in the U.S., and where they'll be at is actually Chicago, Illinois. So the Windy City. So, oh man, I really wish I could have gone to this. Like, if I had to, like, trust me, as someone who, if you all caught last week's show, first and foremost, thank you to Kevin Pratt and Devin Buston for being guests on Set Point. But Kevin Pratt talks about a middle hitter being a passion project. This is kind of my passion project, except I really want this to really take off, and I kind of want to be the it guy when it comes to volleyball, so I could go to places and get all that sort of thing. Just because I love covering volleyball, and I want to be one of the voices to help grow the game of volleyball, but I digress. Anyway, so week 2 of the men's VNL. So Chicago, Illinois is actually one of the sites that will be part of this week's VNL. The other will be in Bulgaria, and then Serbia will be the other host. So starting off on Wednesday. So every match will actually begin on Wednesday. So you've got Ukraine versus France. France is definitely good, but Ukraine has kind of been on the rise here. Like this is you got to remember, this is Ukraine's first ever VNL, and they have really taken teams by storm, and they've even pushed teams to 5. So don't be surprised if Ukraine kind of gives France some fits, but France should be able to stand on business. I know France isn't as good as they were in the Olympics last year, but we'll see. Then you've got Germany, Cuba, Turkey, Slovenia, Netherlands, Argentina. That can kind of be a good matchup right there. I feel that, especially with David Losera of Argentina, I feel this kind of is a sneaky good rivalry match. And then we've got a real good matchup, Bulgaria versus Japan. Let's see if Japan's fast-paced offense can keep up with the flashiness of Bulgaria, because you've got Alex and Monikolov on the Bulgarian side, and I think it's going to be such an amazing matchup. And Bulgaria is going to have a big crowd, that's for sure. And again, they're hosting this week. Then you got Italy, Poland. That I think could be another good matchup. Poland is the only undefeated team in the VNL on the men's side. Italy, I know, is pretty solid as well. So don't think that, even though Poland is undefeated, don't think that every team isn't going to be gunning for them. And then we've got Serbia, Iran, and then Canada, Brazil. That can kind of be a good matchup. I think that could be a sneaky good matchup, in my opinion. And then you've got China versus the U.S., which actually closes off day 1 of the VNL. And that'll be the first match for the U.S. in terms of being in Chicago, Illinois. That's going to be very fun. And Larry B pops in the chat room. He says he's enjoying the VNL. I am too. I mean, let me just expand on this comment. Considering that there isn't any college volleyball happening, there's no high school volleyball happening, there's no junior college volleyball happening, there's not too much volleyball happening until the NCAA women's season kicks off in mid-August. The VNL is kind of the only volleyball we've got, other than like the AVP and whatnot. And there are no pro leagues happening, as well as you've got the VLA, which actually just added a new team. I forgot to mention the VLA added the Texas Tornadoes, which clever name right there. But yeah, I'm enjoying the VNL too, just because it's kind of the only volleyball we have other than the AVP. So, and then some other international tournaments. So I definitely agree with you, Larry. I'm enjoying the VNL as well, just because it's giving us kind of a little bit of a preview when it comes to some of these teams. I mean, it's not as exciting as last year and the previous years, just because some teams aren't really taking it seriously, which I think is pretty sucky, but it is what it is. And then Thursday, we have France versus Japan. Another good matchup right there. That's going to be a very fun matchup. Then you got Netherlands, Germany, Turkey, Ukraine, Serbia, Cuba, Brazil, China, Canada, USA. The North American clash. That is going to be a fun one, just because Canada's got some studs on their team. The U.S. is still looking as young and spry as ever. That's going to be a very fun matchup. And I hear there are still tickets to that. So if you haven't gotten your tickets to Chicago, you got to get them. I think that Canada-USA matchup is going to be so amazing, so fun. And a good buddy of mine, Rob St. Clair, actually has a little friendly wager with his co-host on Volleyball Coverage Channel. I forget his last name, but his first name's like Everett. But if USA wins, then his buddy Everett has to wear a USA shirt and whatnot, or USA jersey. But if Canada wins, then Rob St. Clair has to wear the Canada jersey. So to the U.S., you got to make Rob St. Clair proud. Do not disappoint him by any means, because he doesn't want to face the nation or face the world or all of his YouTube subscribers or any of his audience wearing a USA or a Canada jersey. So, and for the record, Rob St. Clair is pro USA, and then his buddy Everett is pro Canada. So I'm sorry if I don't know Everett's last name. I do need to go back and watch more of Rob St. Clair and whatnot and his Volleyball Coverage Channel, but I digress. So that's on Thursday as well. Jumping over to Friday, we've got Ukraine, Japan, Argentina, Iran. That can kind of be a good matchup, but I just think that Argentina will probably be a little bit too much for Iran. Then you've got Bulgaria, Slovenia. Then you got Netherlands, Cuba, and then China, Italy, and then Canada, Poland to close off Friday in the VNL. Then on Saturday, we have Slovenia, France, which I think can kind of be a good matchup. Then you've got Germany, Iran, Bulgaria, Turkey. I wish Bulgaria on the men's side was just as good as Turkey. Or I'm sorry, I wish Turkey on the men's side was just as good as Turkey on the women's side. But maybe that could be a good matchup. I just think that Bulgaria is going to be too much for Turkey. Then you got Serbia, Argentina. Then you got Brazil, Italy. Barn burner alert right there. That's going to be a fun one. And then you've got the U.S. versus Poland. That one is sold out. I can guarantee you all that matchup is sold out. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what those two can do against one another. I think it's going to be a very fun matchup. And I think it's a rematch of last year's Olympic semifinals where Poland outlasted the U.S. in 5, which, oh, man. I'm sorry to give back flashbacks, bad memories to USA fans, but I digress. And then on Sunday, we have Slovenia, Japan, Iran, Netherlands, Turkey, France, Cuba, Argentina, Bulgaria, Ukraine. That's going to be another fun matchup. I think Bulgaria, Ukraine, it's going to be the young Ukraine team taking on a stacked and loaded Bulgaria team. Then you've got China versus Canada. That can kind of be a good matchup right there. Then you got Germany, Serbia, then Brazil, Poland, another barn burner matchup right there. And closing off the VNL in Chicago, we've got a low ticket amount, USA versus Italy. like I've been mentioning to you, all the tickets will be flying like nothing, like nobody's business. And USA Italy, the tickets are limited. So get a ticket while you can. Go to Chicago if you have the funds, unlike me. But go to Chicago, go to the Now Center, I think that's what it's called, and go check out all, not just USA volleyball, but check out all of the VNL. You will be generally surprised. But USA Italy is going to be another barn burner alert. I think it's going to be a very fun matchup just because, well, the US, again, they're a young team, but Italy is one of the more stronger teams. They're actually fourth in the VNL, fourth in the world. Not going to make the same mistake when I called them fourth in the nation or when I got the world and nation mixed up, but I digress. Anyway, so yeah, Poland comes into this weekend number one. There is actually no winless teams, but the last place team in the VNL on the men's side is actually Serbia. So, oh God, tough time to be a Serbia volleyball fan because the women's Serbian team could be on the doorstep of relegation. And right now, it's a little too early to say that Serbia on the men's side will be relegated. There's still 2 weeks left before relegation happens. But anyway, the U.S. comes into this week's VNL ranked 11th in the standings. Only the top 8 advances to the knockout round. If we all remember last year when it came to the men's VNL, the U.S. did not make it to the knockout round, which sucks just because I think that experience would have helped them out in terms of the Olympics. Maybe it could have given them a little bit more of a boost when they faced Poland in that semifinal, but I digress in that regard. But anyway, yeah, I think for the U.S., it's now that some of these young guns have some experience under their belt, they now know what to expect when it comes to some of these hostile crowds. I will say Poland is going to be an uphill climb. Then Italy is also going to be an uphill climb. I'm really hoping a lot of USA fans have a massive turnout in Chicago. If they don't, then I will be generally disappointed. And then I'm kind of going to see the problem with attendance in terms of volleyball in the U.S. Unless you're Nebraska and Hawaii, of course. But I digress. Canada is actually 6th in the VNL standings, so that's going to be another good challenge right there. And then who else does the U.S. have? They've got Canada. They don't play Brazil. They play. They've got Poland, Canada, and China. Okay, so they've got China. So China as well. So looking at China in terms of the standings, they are 8th. So every team that the U.S. is playing this week, they're ranked higher in terms of the standings. I mean, China's kind of the most manageable. Maybe Canada as well, but Italy's going to be a tough one, hence why the tickets are limited. And then Poland being sold out, that one's going to be a barn burner as well. That's going to be a tough one for the U.S. as well. But again, they don't have to leave their beds or they don't have to go too far. It's not like they're going internationally. I think they'll have a nice little bit of some home field advantage. I just hope for the U.S.'s sake, they don't get too many impatient fans. Like for all the fans that are hoping to see wins and hoping to see more progress, we all got to just pump the brakes and remember, these are some young guys and this isn't the Olympic team or the USA A team. This is kind of like the B or C team, but I digress. But yeah, VNL starts in 2 more days, which I think is awesome. So there's not going to be a late night Saturday match for those of us in the US and whatnot, but I digress. All right, but that is that for the VNL portion of the show, especially the men's VNL. So let's actually go to some class of 2027 girls commits. So I forgot to mention this on last week's show, but last week was a pretty long show just because I had 2 guests and then I had some other volleyball to go over. So some class of 2020 commits are as follows on the screen. So we had JoJo Wilson committing to Stanford Beach, Wesley Matavau committed to UCLA for indoor volleyball. You had Ella Olson committing to Texas for both beach and indoor, which I think is pretty nice. Then you have Kendall, I'm just going to try to pronounce this correctly. Omaneri. she's committed to Nebraska. And then that was part one of some of my notable players that have committed. So part two includes places like Peyton Kubik, who is the younger sister of Hayden Kubik. And then you also have Sophie Peterson. She's committed to Texas A&M. Kubik's committed to Pitt. You have Marley Robinson, who's committed to Oregon for beach volleyball. Then you have Piper Chalinsky, who's committed to TCU. And then you have Kate Kylzwinski, who's committed to The Ohio State. And then I've got some other commits that I didn't put down as well. You also have McKenna McIntosh, who's committed to SC. Well, I'll be talking about her a little bit later. But yeah, Kendall Omorui, she's committed to Nebraska. Olivia Henry's committed to Penn State. I mentioned Wesley Matavau. She's committed to UCLA. Sophie Peterson, she's committed to Texas A&M. Tessa Larkin, who hails from Arizona, she's committed to Minnesota. Bryn Stevens, who is from Texas, from Rock Hill, Texas, she's committed to SMU. Shay Witherspoon, who's from Lafayette, she's committed to Nebraska. Najari Cooks, who is from Wesleyan Christian Academy, she's committed to Penn State. Kyla Williams, she's committed to Pitt. Taylor Harrington, she's committed to Penn State. Kalani Lajea Brewer, she's committed to Louisville. Carson Comer, she's committed to Louisville. Marley Smith, she's committed to North Carolina. Allie Hudgens, she's committed to Creighton. Mallory Bosiger, who I want to say her older sister Macy, she's committed to Nebraska. Lauren Forelli, she's committed to Michigan State. Abby King, she's committed to Cal for beach volleyball. Maisie Agnello, she's committed to Missouri. I mentioned Ella Olson already. Reagan Wallraff, she's committed to Creighton. And I'm not going to try to bore all of you. Those are all the players that are ranked nationally in terms of the class of 2027. This is via PrepDig, by the way. So all those players that I mentioned, they're on PrepDig. My good friend Michelle Bamford, she does an amazing job with that. But yeah, those are some of the players that are committed in terms of the girls class of 2027. So some notable players that aren't committed in terms of the class of 2027 in terms of girls volleyball include Ireland Real, who is the highest ranked player who is not committed in terms of the class of 2027, which I think is pretty cool. But I can't wait to see where she commits to. You got Isabel Incinelli. You got Marissa Jones, Kyla Williams, Kalia Lee, who I'm kind of familiar with. She plays at Cathedral Catholic in San Diego. Asia Udo Emma, she's actually from Corona Centennial, and I will probably be seeing her in early August when Corona Centennial plays in the Queens of the Court tournament. It doesn't count toward anyone's schedule. It's like preseason volleyball. It's kind of like the dress rehearsal for volleyball and whatnot. But you got Caroline Ward as well, Caitlin Herwig, who I also have familiarity of covering, and then other players like Laren Rosenthal, who I imagine is Tread's little sister, Gentry Barker, she's from Mad Frog Volleyball. In terms of club volleyball, Emery Gonzalez, she's the setter for Torrey Pines. Ava Burgess, who unfortunately doesn't have her height, but she's an outside, and so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you all, just because you could all check this out on PrepDig. So there you have it. But yeah, some of those, and then a couple other players who I kind of threw in there as well. I threw Emma Kingston in there just because she is from Mater Dei, and she definitely has a lot of upside to her game. I think she had an amazing freshman year. I feel she maybe kind of took a little bit of a step back her sophomore year, but I think she's going to have another big year ahead of her. I think junior year is when she's going to really flourish and blossom for this Mater Dei team. And remember, Mater Dei is the reigning CIF Southern Section Division I champion. I imagine that Mater Dei is going to be in contention for the state championship and the national championship this year. So keep an eye on her when it comes to girls volleyball. And then also someone else I threw on there is Kate Jackson. Now, Kate Jackson, I feel kind of doesn't get the recognition she truly deserves, just because Ireland Real is kind of like the headliner, as well as Memphis Burnett. But I think Kate Jackson is definitely an underrated player, and whoever is in need of a player like her, I think you got to like look at her film and then go check her out in terms of like club volleyball, and then hopefully get her before someone else recruits her, because she definitely has had her big matches. She had a big match against Oaks Christian in the CIF state playoffs for Santa Margarita. So I think Kate Jackson is vastly underrated, and I think you all recruiters out there, you got to buy stock into Kate Jackson. But I threw Emma Kingston and Kate Jackson on this list just because I think they are vastly underrated. Maybe that's my California bias, but I definitely think those two are underrated just because they definitely have their roles on their team. And again, for Emma Kingston, it's surprising. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's surprising that she's not even on the class of 2027's overall national ranking. She's not even in the top 100, which I think is rather interesting if you ask me. Maybe maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I missed something in regards to her. But I think Emma Kingston is definitely deserves some more love. And maybe she just had a little bit of a down sophomore year. Maybe she'll have a big junior year this year, and so on and so forth. So there you go. I actually do want to check the well, it's probably not going to matter anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much that for all of the high school girls volleyball class of 2027 commits and some notable class of 2027 commits. Again, recruiters, these are your players that you should be keeping an eye on that, to my knowledge, have not committed. Knowing my luck, some of these players have probably committed already during the show. All right, but speaking of McKenna McIntosh, and this is something I actually do want to touch upon before I end the show. So McKenna McIntosh, this was actually breaking news over the weekend. So McKenna McIntosh, she actually transferred to Sierra Canyon, which is crazy if you ask me. So again, McKenna McIntosh is committed to USC. Good for her. But she's transferring from St. Mary's in Stockton, California, to Sierra Canyon in Chatsworth. So in case you all are not familiar with Sierra Canyon, that is a really good team right there. They actually finished number 11 nationally and number 4 in the state. And I think that team is going to be really good come this season. They actually did release their schedule, as they will be playing in 3 nationally ranked tournaments. One will be Redondo Power Classic. Okay, maybe that one's not nationally ranked, but they will be playing in Durango. Always a great tournament, always nationally ranked. All the nationally ranked teams, or most of the nationally ranked teams, are going to be in that tournament. And then they'll also be partaking in the Ann Kang tournament, which there are some good teams there. I mean, it's not a lot of nationally ranked teams, but it's always a good barometer for most of the teams in California to see where they're at in terms of starting the season. But back to Sierra Canyon. So this is big just because Sierra Canyon does have a lot of returners on their team. This is a team that returns most of its roster, or most of its starting lineup. The only couple players that I know that aren't returning are Brandy Boston, who graduated, and then Lauren Lynch, who also graduated. She's off to playing at University of San Diego. But some notable, McKenna McIntosh actually joins players such as Hannah McInnes, Lucky Fasavalu, who actually is a Missouri commit, Eva Jeffries, Ziggy Rex, and then Olive Shum. So a little bit more of a deeper depth on some of these players that I just mentioned. So, my computer's acting up. So yeah, so a little bit more of a deeper dive when it comes to some of these players and whatnot on Sierra Canyon. So this Sierra Canyon team returns its top kill leader from last year, which is McInnes. When they also return Eva Jeffries, who is the second kill leader. Both of them had over 400 kills, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. So there's a lot of that. There's something to take that into consideration. And then Lucky Fasavalu, I think she'll also become a key member. She'll also become key for the Sierra Canyon team. And then they also return Madeline Zaragoza, who actually led the team in service aces, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. And then, like I mentioned, they return Olive Shum. And then they've also returned Jeffries and McInnes, and so on and so forth. In terms of blocking, they lost Brandy Boston to graduation, but they do return Zion Ziggy Rex. And I don't know why she's called Ziggy, but I digress. So she returns. And then in terms of Diggs, losing Lauren Lynch does suck, but I imagine Madeline Zaragoza might be she might be the one that takes over that position, but it's not entirely certain. She does play defensive specialist. I kind of saw her in that CIF final as a serving specialist and whatnot, so maybe we'll see her at the libero position. Maybe we'll see her at outside. We will have to see when it comes to Zaragoza. She actually was Zaragoza was seventh in terms of she was sixth in terms of digs. So again, possibility, not entirely certain. And then in terms of the setters, Sierra Canyon returns both of its setters. They return Shum and then they return Fasavalu. I think that's big right there because they'll be running a 6-2 offense, and those two are only going to be juniors. So most of the Sierra Canyon team is going to be returning big time. They return most of its players, which are only sophomores, but now they'll have a lot of experience. And you got to remember, this is a Sierra Canyon team that made the CIF finals last year, but unfortunately lost to Mater Dei. And they also pushed Mater Dei to 5 sets in the CIF state playoffs. So overall, the Sierra Canyon team is going to be super talented this year, and I can't wait to see what Sierra Canyon brings to the table. So we shall see what Sierra Canyon has in store for us. I think they could definitely be a great team this year just because they're not just LeBron James's son schools. They're everything talented school. And I think girls volleyball is one of those talented teams that they have from their school. So keep it on Sierra Canyon in terms of high school girls volleyball, especially for everyone here in the California area, the Southern California area. So you have that right there. And like I mentioned, some of Sierra Canyon's schedule includes playing in the Ann Kang tournament, the Durango tournament, and the Redondo Power Classic. And then they also have a lot of notable teams. They take on Santa Margarita, which I think is great. J. Sarah is another good matchup right there. And then their league, they'll be playing some of their league teams 3 times. So all their league matches are 3 times, which I think is rather crazy. I've seen some leagues do that. I know the Seaview League in my neck of the woods kind of does that. But when it comes to the Mission League, it's now a whole different beast because now there's a whopping, 15 league games? Or is it 12? I gotta count it up, but it's quite a bit of league games because there's Sierra Canyon, Alamany, Harvard Westlake, Marymount, Chaminade, and that's it. So it's just 5 teams. So yeah, there'll be 12 league games for Sierra Canyon, probably because no one wants to face them and they don't want to go out of state and whatnot. But I digress. All right, but that is that for that little bit of high school girls volleyball news. I think it's big that McKenna McIntosh is going to Sierra Canyon. She's definitely a great player, and she was part of St. Mary's success from last year. I know they lost to St. Francis of Mountain View in the state playoffs, but I think McKenna McIntosh is going to make a big impact for this Sierra Canyon team. And who knows, maybe the Sierra Canyon team will actually win CIF in Division 1. The last time they did that was 2022 when they knocked off Miracosta. So that's something to make note of as well. But more on girls volleyball in the near future, as we just passed the CIF Southern section dead period and whatnot. So yeah, there you go. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. I'll be back Thursday for Lead Off Thursday, and I'll be back next week for another episode of Set Point. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. If you're in the Chicago area, go check out the VNL. You will not be disappointed. Support the U.S. men's national team. They definitely deserve it. And I'll see you all on Thursday for Lead Off Thursday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Or have a great week of volleyball as well. And be safe, be well, and wear your sunscreen because it's going to be hot. Peace!